Module 7, creating an Excel application. All right, so this happens all the time. You call a pizza place, they take down your order. So they take down your name, your address, what you want on your pizza, and it calculates the totals and so on. Now, we need a bunch of information to go to a bunch of different places. First of all, we need a delivery slip that basically has your name and address and what you ordered that the driver needs to know where to take your pizza. We also need an invoice, which has the price that you paid and so on there. For tax purposes, we're gonna send you that too. And then we're going to save your information into a database. And in that database, the next time you call up, we could say, oh, you've ordered from us a bunch of times. You get a discount, and so on, right? Now, if you extend this a little farther, we could also create an application that does things like, oh, you ordered $49.95. If only $1 more, you'll get free delivery or something like that, right? So we're going to talk about not only how do we enter that data, but use it several different places for several different reasons, but how do we print out receipts? How do we create a custom application that we can use over and over again in our business and start that database process? So in 7.1, we're going to talk about starting an Excel application, which is basically just a fancy sheet that we're going to be setting up to input orders, in this case, our pizza example. We're going to talk about creating, editing, and deleting defined names for cells. So instead of having to remember where do we put the tax rate, we can call that cell tax, and in our formulas just do equals tax times price, and it'll do the calculation for us. If we had a diner, we could set things up like eggs, coffee, tea, and then use those in formulas. So equals coffee times 2, equals eggs times 3, equals coffee plus eggs, and then those formulas would happen. We're going to paste a list of defined names and documentation. This is really important because if you're giving your sheet to somebody else and they have no idea what custom cell names you put in there, they're not going to know to type in equals coffee or equals tea. So this is going to tell them all the different cells and where they link to. We're also going to talk about adding defined names to existing formulas. So once we start defining names and we start putting those in formulas, we could do things like adding them together. Like, so for example, equals eggs times tax, for example. In 7.2, we're going to create data validation rules. This is really important because often people are going to make mistakes entering data, and this could make sure that they, for example, have a drop-down box or that their data has to match exactly what you're doing. So if you ask somebody for an email address or a phone number, it has the right number of characters or the right number of digits in order to make sure that you're getting back what you need to get back. Otherwise, you're going to have faulty data. We're going to talk about protecting the contents of a worksheet with a password, and we're going to talk about adding, editing, and deleting comments. And I'll tell you right now, comments is never a good idea because somebody might miss them, but in some cases, it's a good idea to put them in. In 7.3, we're going to talk about macro viruses. A lot of times, this way that this custom application works is through a macro, and macros are computer code, which can do bad things if you don't do them properly. We're going to talk about adding the developer tab onto the top of your Excel so you're able to create and record macros. And we're going to talk about the Visual Basic Editor, which is basically the code that's created as the macro runs. We're going to talk about creating a macro keyboard shortcut. So you could do a special custom keyboard to do your magic, and then special things happen. And then finally, we're going to talk about saving and opening a macro-enabled workbook, which has a special file extension and is different than a regular Excel sheet. If it's not saved with that special macro-enabled file extension, the file won't save. So it's really, really important to do that.